Hey everyone, my name is Sam and thanks for checking out my video. Welcome if you are new and hello if you are returning. Thanks for coming back. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and give the video a thumbs up. Or give it a thumbs down. I got my first thumbs down a little while ago and that was pretty exciting. It means you're officially on YouTube at that point. So in the spirit of the 12 days of Christmas, I am counting down my 12-ish favorite books. I cheated a little bit and this is one of the spots where I cheated. Just a little bit. I feel like it's kind of cheating and kind of not cheating. See, I made up the rules, so, it's a gray area, right? I justify being able to squish these into one single spot because they both talk about the same time period. Kinda. Well, at least the same historic event. So, just nod and agree. Nod and agree. So, taking spot number 7, The Wolf by Wolf duology by Ryan Groden. I actually don't have the second book, Blood for Blood, in physical copy yet. I was waiting for the paperback copy to come out, and I haven't been able to pick it up since, so hopefully I'll get it for Christmas or after Christmas. The Wolf by Wolf duology broke my heart. This is my first introduction to Ryan Groden, and oh my god. So this book, the front kind of says it all, is what if the Nazis won the war? So the entire premise of this book is it is set in an alternative future where Hitler had not lost to the Allies when he lost to the Allies in our world. The main character, Yale, I believe is how you say it, was a victim of science experiments in the concentration camps and she broke out. Part of the experiment that she is one of the very few successful known survivalists of is the ability to morph and face shift. And so there is now in this present time alternative future a motorcycle race and it is used as kind of a propaganda thing. Yale takes on the persona of a character who has the ability to get close to Hitler in an attempt to assassinate him. And you go through this motorcycle race and this book, made me kind of re-fall in love with alternative history. I've never fallen out of it, but I hadn't read one in a long time. And it also made Ryan Groden an instant buy author for me. The sequel, Blood for Blood, actually tore my heart out. I was driving for work and I started crying in the car when I finished the audiobook. There's a little bit of romance. It's definitely not a main point. It is super interesting. You get to visit all these different places and see her struggle with trying to take on this character's persona while also simultaneously trying to be an undercover agent and keep track of everything that she needs to keep track of. The writing was so cool, the plot was very interesting, the premise was really interesting, and it took a potentially sometimes historical fiction can be boring for some people, but you throw a motorcycle race into the whole premise and it just made it super interesting and unique. So I would very highly recommend this book. I think I liked the first book more, but I think it was just because the second book broke my heart. But definitely, I would highly suggest Wolf by Wolf and Blood for Blood by Ryan Groden. Alright, and this is the one that I kind of cheated on because I could not keep both of these in, but then I couldn't knock Bear and the Nightingale out because that was number 12, so yeah. Anyways, so taking up also spot number 7 is A Prisoner of Night and Fog duology by Anne Blankman. This series was recommended on, I think it was Haley and Bookland said something about it. Yeah, I want to say Haley and Bookland. I actually own the UK covers, which are these ones. I also own the US covers, and I just really wanted both of them. I think both covers are actually pretty cool, but I think these ones just, are prettier. And I feel like I got a better vibe of what exactly this book was about from this. So once again, this is a duology. However, it is set in World War II, right before, it's kind of the rise of Hitler's power. So Gretchen Mueller's father worked within the Nazi party during its kind of rise up, but has since been killed by the time this story starts. Her mother is having a hard time, and her brother is a piece of garbage, to put it lightly, if I'm totally honest. She is very luckily in this time period, not only, white, blonde, blue-eyed, but she is also a very close family friend of Adolf Hitler, which leads to her in the book referring to him as Uncle Dolph. And this is that whole right there was the reason I picked it up. It's just so interesting seeing them through that light, because, no matter what we think of him now, because, none of us are particularly fond of that dude now, but, he had people in his life. He was an uncle and a brother to someone. So it's kind of interesting to see that perspective. And people believed him. We have the foresight now of knowing what he did. But they didn't at this time, right? So it's so interesting because you see these political rises and falls in society now. And this one just went to a super extreme. Despite having this pretty privileged situation, other than her brother being a sociopath, she was able to rely on Adolf Hitler for a lot of support and kind of as a father figure because hers has died. Things very drastically at the beginning take a big turn. She meets a journalist who happens to be a Jewish man living in Germany right before all of the chaos is going to ensue that we know will happen. He informs her that he does not believe her father died, as said, he thinks he was murdered. Their stories start to interact. This is her first interaction with someone of the Jewish background. She goes into that community and sees what's going on. She receives some sort of prejudices as well. And there's some romance that develops, and just chaos ensues, and it kind of follows along the historical events that did happen. I think it's near the end of A Prisoner of Night and Fog where she finally has this revelation of exactly who Adolf Hitler is. And it is so interestingly written, and once again, it made Anne Blankman a total instant buy author for me. I picked up her other book as soon as I found out that she had another title, and I would just really highly recommend it. It was so interesting. The characters were really likable, and despite them being on, the German side kind of thing, you see that they're straddling this border right there, and I think it did a good job of kind of emphasizing the thing that we're taught in university is, not all Germans were Nazis and not all Nazis were German. And there were internal rebellions. We just had them very hushed up. We don't hear a whole lot about, there was, I can't remember where it was, but, there were a bunch of Jewish gentlemen who were rounded up, and then all their wives stood in protest who were German Aryans and protested until their husbands were released from that prison. We had, I think it's Hans and Sophie, I can't remember their name. I'll put a picture of the book or movie that was about them, but they ended up being beheaded because they started spreading rebellious messages around a university using their printing press. So there were these stories that we just don't hear about them quite as often. And this is kind of where that kind of falls under. There's this internal rebellion once people exactly realize what's happening. And sometimes, and you see this as well in here, sometimes people are just brainwashed beyond saving, and sometimes not everyone is good. As much as we want to believe that, some people are just inherently bad, and, we can cover it up and try and protect them as much as we can, but at some point or another, they have to stand on their own 2 feet. All in all, I would really highly recommend both of these series, despite talking on a super difficult subject where we know exactly all the horrors that happened. It was an interesting perspective. It wasn't one that I had read before in either cases, and it was one that I really enjoyed enough to pick up my own physical copies. I mean, in the case of this one, I bought the US and the UK covers. They're just really not talked about all that much, especially Prisoner of Night and Fog. I've heard a little bit of murmurs about Wolf by Wolf, but nothing super major I think that it deserves. And Prisoner of Night and Fog, and then the sequel, A Conspiracy of Blood and Smoke. The sequel is about Gretchen and Daniel, the Jewish gentlemen, kind of out on their own after they've taken that, line, after they've drawn that line in the sand and crossed it to where they can't go back anymore. And yeah, I would just super highly recommend these series. That is spot number 7, filled with 4 books, because I cheated, whatever. Let me know in the comment section down below if you've read either of these and your thoughts on it. Also, let me know if you've read any cool historical World War II fictions that are a little bit unique, because I always love finding some of those gems. Make sure to check the description box down below where all of my social media is linked. If you follow me, I will follow you back.